We all remember the fire that brought down the icon of the state fair of Texas, Big Tex. We know that he's getting rebuilt. However, there's a bit of a problem. The cost to refurbish the Big Cowboy is more than double what the fair had insured him. Joining us now is insurance agent, attorney Marc Fanning with Fanning Harper. So, Marc, the fair had Big Tex insured for $200,000, but we see that, according to the Dallas Morning News, that the repairs are going to cost at least twice that much. Is this common?
It can be. I mean, it depends on who set the value. Oftentimes, the insured state fair will set the value of what they want to pay premiums against. Sometimes the insurance company will be involved, but it's not that uncommon to find that you're underinsured or you've missed the mark based on how much money you've put for the amount of insurance.
Now, I guess because this is Big Tex and people love Big Tex, you can ask for donations to help cover the difference, but that doesn't always happen with everything.
No, it's very clever of the state fair to kind of tug on everybody emotionally at this time of year in the giving season to try to help them cover their shortfall. I
don't think they did anything wrong, but at the same time, is this part of the plan? Do we see this from time to time?
No, it's pretty unusual. I think it would only happen in the case of an icon like Big Tex or some landmark that might get destroyed by a storm or otherwise, and the city or some institution, organization not be in a position to cover their loss and then kind of turn to the public and say, hey, this is an icon. This is something we care about in our community. Let's all pitch in and help. But like I say, I think it's very clever on the part of State Fair's part.
Talking to insurance attorney Marc Fanning, I guess you could apply this to your real world. Like, you insure for your house for $200,000, but as the house increases in value and add things, I think it's one of those things you probably ought to look at to make sure that you, quote, indeed cover everything that you want covered.
Absolutely. And if you and I had this loss, would we turn to our neighbors and say, hey, here, pass the hat, help us out? I'm not sure that would work, but it's good. It's a good try here.
And I also assume that because this, Big Tex was over 60 years, they're obviously wanting to do some upgrades. And even if they had, if you indeed replaced Big Tex at what he was, you might be able to get it for $250,000.
Right. Like I say, there's not, clear fault on anybody's part. It probably was a policy that just kept rolling over year after year, like you say, and he's gone up in value and nobody recognized it. And now we have this loss and we're seeing what the amount of coverage for him, wasn't enough. But so it happens.
A cynic might say it might make sense to underinsure a big landmark like that because, well, someone else will help pitch it in to bring it back to normal. Walk me through this part.
Well, sure. I mean, they've been paying premiums based on $200,000, whereas maybe they should have carried $400,000 on him, and the premiums would have been a lot higher. So they've saved. So the cynical side of us would say, "Gee, you've saved all this money in premiums through the years, and now you want the rest of us to kick in and help cover that." So, but again, it could. I know nothing of the state fair's operation, and it could be very innocent on their part.
Okay, as we look into 2013, just to help us with our insurance, should we be planning for extra things next year, or is this something you should typically do at the end of the year anyway?
Well, you should do it every time your policy renews. You ought to take a look at it, take a look at the values, and policies renew throughout the year. It's not a year-end function. But as you hit your policy renewal in the coming year, and from what I hear through the media, the rates are going to go up significantly. We've had a number of storms and catastrophes, so it's going to be ugly, they say, this next year. But, it's something that ought to be analyzed every time you renew.
Well, I was going to you just touched on it a little bit. Is there certain things that you've seen, say, over the last few years that you really should pay attention to make sure that you are covered enough?
Well, sure. Switching gears a little bit and going to the automobile, we all should carry underinsured motorist coverage because there's so many motorists out there who don't have adequate insurance or don't have any insurance. And if they hit you, then your underinsured motorist coverage will kick in and help you. That's a big factor to protect yourself from the uninsured public. And then, like you say, with your homeowners, you need to make sure you've got plenty for both the dwelling and the contents, and make sure you have replacement cost coverage for that, because you don't want to be stuck in the big tech situation where you're underinsured.
Speaking of the car, been there, done that, and got the bumper to prove it.
Yeah.
Insurance attorney Marc Fanning, thanks for joining us this afternoon. I appreciate
it. You bet.
It.
Thank you.
Have a great 2013.
Thank you, you too.
Still ahead on 570 KLIF. Traffic and weather's coming up next. An update from the Wall Street Journal comes your way at 3:50. And